Welcome, everybody. My name is Roman Fleischmann. I am a PhD student at the Acoustics Research Institute of the Austrian Academy of Sciences. My presentation is titled Pupil Dilation Tracks Ongoing Belief Updating Across Perceptual Domains. The study has been conducted at the Acoustics Research Institute of the Austrian Academy of Sciences in Vienna and has received funding from the FWF and Marie Curie Actions. The study I am about to show you deals with pupil-linked arousal-mediated belief updating. The theoretical premise goes a little bit like this. When evidence and prior beliefs are integrated, it triggers a prediction error or surprisal, which in turn then drives belief updating. The more the evidence deviates from current beliefs, the higher the prediction error, the more beliefs get updated. Now, it's been suggested that surprisal triggers a burst in arousal. The locus coeruleus releases noradrenaline. This is suggested to in turn suppress the current belief and give more weight to the evidence. If the prior prediction is large, we can assume the prior belief was wrong to some degree, so it gets weighted less, and the prior belief gets updated by the evidence. And in a lucky coincidence, arousal also dilates the pupil, making it easily observable via pupillometry. Now, this is of course horribly simplified. Evidence for this mechanism comes mostly from studies investigating belief updating in learning or learning-adjacent paradigms. The Bayesian brain hypothesis is speculated to dictate the processing of information across learning and perception across different domains and modalities. For these reasons, findings are often extrapolated to areas where they have not been tested in. In the auditory modality, experimental evidence for such belief updating mechanism on a perceptual level is missing. Further, evidence for a generalization across domains is implied by the Bayesian brain hypothesis, but missing as well. This is what we are targeting in the present study. The first question we're trying to answer is, does this mechanism hold up in a task targeting implicit online auditory perception? We're hoping for one, that it does, and we are hoping to show this through participants' behavior and through their pupil dilations. And the second question targets this implied generalizability. Does it generalize over domains? Here we again expect that it does, and we hope to show it over spatial and temporal hearing via pupil dilations. In hypotheses, this reads like this. Probabilistic perceptual belief updating occurs in spatial and temporal hearing on an implicit sensory level in dynamic environments. Surprisal predicts task-evoked pupil dilations. The relationship between surprisal and task-evoked dilations is largely independent from perceptual domain. To this end, we devised a latent state discrimination task. We had two groups of participants participating in two very similar tasks. They were presented with sequences of auditory stimuli. The stimuli presented evidences for two respective latent states. In the spatial group, the states were clockwise and counterclockwise motion. In the temporal group, the states were acceleration and deceleration. This means that the spatial group were presented stimuli at a constant rate, but varied its spatialization from left to right, illustrated with the blue dots here. Vice versa, in the temporal group, the red dots, the spatialization stayed constant, but the rate of presentation was varied to achieve acceleration and deceleration. Now, in both tasks, there were change points randomly within the sequence, where latent states were changed. So from deceleration to acceleration, or from clockwise to counterclockwise. Participants' task was very easy. Listen to the sequence until it stops after a random length, and then indicate in a two-alternative forced choice design which state the last point of presented evidence was in. So simply, did the last stimulus accelerate or decelerate, or move left or right, depending on which group they were in? This already produced nice behavioral results. What you see here is the participant's accuracy within the sequence. Sound after change point level indicates which stimulus is presented after a change point. So at SAC is 1, participants had just experienced a change point, and therefore their accuracy plummets below chance level. With the second presented evidence after a change point, they already cross chance level, and further on, they just increase accuracy for every additional coherent stimulus. This is well in line with what we would expect to happen when prior belief biases participants' perceptual judgments. Now, in a next step, we fitted an ideal observer model to the sequences. I'm not going into detail here. Only important part is that we estimate the priors, likelihoods, and posteriors for every stimulus in a sequence, trying to explain the respective behavioral answer of the participant. From the model, we calculated surprisal per stimulus. We further calculated a measure of pupil dilation per stimulus. Over SAC level, this looks like this. Directly after a change point, accuracy is quite bad, as already shown, and surprise is peaking, as expected. This is accompanied by moderate pupil dilation. Then at SSC is 2, performance crosses chance level, and here we also see a peak in pupil dilation. Surprisal decreases. From SSC is 3 onwards, participants just get more accurate, less surprised, and pupil dilation decreases. So within sequences, we see a clear effect of change point that is immediately visible in surprisal and accuracy, and visible with a little bit of a delay in pupil dilation. Now, when we regress pupil dilation against surprisal, we see 2 things. 1, surprisal significantly predicts pupil dilation. This is what was hypothesized and is generally not a new finding, but in the auditory modality, it has so far mostly been shown for learning, not for perception. Secondly, and this is a little bit hidden here, surprisal predicts pupil dilation across both tasks. This targets the question of generalizability. As you can see, there is only one regression line, even though I have 2. This is because we've also performed a model comparison. We've compared an extensive regression model that accounts for possible differences between tasks against a simpler model that models the effect as a constant over both tasks. I've only shown the base factor here, but across all model metrics, the simpler model was preferred, suggesting that the effect is not localized in the tasks, but generalized across the tested domains. Now, this is not the end of it. After we had confirmed our hypotheses, we wanted to check our data against a second latent variable, which is information gain. Surprisal is most commonly named as a variable in the literature when it comes to pupil dilation in belief updating, but there is some literature tapping into information gain trying to separate the two, so we figured we might give it a try. And it turns out information gain significantly outperforms surprisal across all model metrics and shows the same non-specificity for domain already seen for surprisal. Now, this is not entirely crazy as a result, as surprisal and info gain are highly correlated. You can think about it that way. Surprisal is the prediction error, which is calculated as the Shannon information. Due to that being all probabilities, it can go into extreme values close to 0 or basically infinity. Up from a certain point, that's not really informative. Information gain tells us how much the posterior is changed in relation to the prior as a result of the prediction error. Now, even if the prediction error is enormous, it can only update the prior so much. Once we reach the point of a latent state change that we are certain has happened, larger prediction errors do not translate into more information gain. So information gain is somewhat of a task-relevant measure here, but of course the two are highly correlated. Which leaves us with the takeaway from all of this. First, participants showed behavior that is in line with probabilistic belief updating. This is notable as they showed this behavior in an implicit perceptual task where we tried to get rid of anything that could resemble higher cognition reasoning like learning. Second, information gain predicts pupil dilations, and it does so better than surprisal. Third, both surprisal and information gain had an effect on pupil dilation that was constant across domains. So it seems like, at least in the 2 tested domains, we actually get a pointer towards a generalizability of pupil-linked arousal-modulated belief updating. Thank you for listening.